Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I recorded this Friday around midday. I share that with you because you never know what's going to happen in Washington, D.C., and I don't want you to be like, why isn't he talking about the thing? Doesn't he know about the thing? I hope there's no thing. And you're like, why did he even mention that he pre-taped this one? Louis Anderson spoke to the Interrobang and said, I do think stand-up comedy is going to come back. You don't think it could ever leave? It's one of the 5 best entertainment groups, like 5 food groups. Stand-up is definitely a needed and an important part of show business. It may not come back in the same format. It may take longer for people to figure out, but it's coming back. I'll give you an example. I thought it wasn't going to happen at all. The Friday after Thanksgiving, a performing arts center asked me, would I come down and do 2 shows outside social distance? And I said, yeah. So it gives me great hope, and that's my proof. People are not going to let stand-up go away. You let stand-up go away, we're going to be living in a fascist, communist, or some kind of dictatorship. Wait, never mind. So we need stand-up. We need to be able to make fun of each other. We need to laugh. That's the best vaccine out there. Well, that and the COVID vaccine, I think, is actually the better vaccine, but we digress. Eddie Izzard came to the defense of J.K. Rowling. Eddie said, I don't think J.K. Rowling is transphobic. I think we need to look at the things she's written about in her blog. Women have been through such hell over history. Trans people have been invisible, too. I hate the idea we are fighting between ourselves, but it's not going to be sorted out with the wave of a wand. I don't have all the answers. If people disagree with me, fine. But why are we going through hell on this? The Verge caught up with Sarah Cooper. You know Sarah? She pantomimes to Donald Trump videos on TikTok. There's about 9 days left to really do that. She had that Netflix special, as you know. You saw it. Wasn't funny. Sarah Cooper. The Verge said, how did you think about moving your audience from social networks to Netflix? Sarah Cooper, you know her. She pantomimes to Donald Trump videos on TikTok. Sarah Cooper said, a long time ago, I wanted to make a video making fun of how Gary Vaynerchuk is on YouTube telling people to follow him on Twitter. And he's on Twitter telling people to follow his Facebook. And then he's on Facebook telling people to follow. So he's just like trying to get people to follow him. I just don't think that works. I feel like you need to meet people where they are. And if people are on YouTube, bring your stuff to YouTube and let them view it on YouTube. With Netflix, it was just funny because I'd be on a call with Netflix marketing and they'd be telling me about personalization and how their platform works and stuff like that. When I worked in tech, I used to design personalization features. It's really interesting being on these different sides of it. Cut to doing the Netflix special where I was doing the Access Hollywood bus scene with Dame Helen Mirren and trying to teach her how to TikTok. I would kill to be Dame Helen Mirren. And she's like, how do I lip sync? And I'm like, why am I teaching you how to lip sync? You should not be lip syncing. You're Shakespearean trained. Not only was it my first special, it was my first COVID production. Oh, God. It was a lot of people's first COVID production. There were a lot of masks. There was a COVID specialist on set. There was a lot of like, hey, you guys are too close. Or, do you need some hand sanitizer? Constant COVID tests. The last day I walked on the set and they took my temperature. I had a temperature. I was like, oh, my God, I'm trying so hard not to get sick because I didn't want to shut down the whole production. And now on the last day I have a temperature. But it turned out I was just standing in the sun. The Verge asked, are you focusing on television or will we still see you on social media? Sarah Cooper, you know Sarah, she pantomimes Donald Trump videos on TikTok. She said, I'll always be on Twitter. I can never get away for some reason. For the foreseeable future, I'm going to be focused on TV, but I don't think I'll ever be able to get away from social media. Plus, I think it's HBO Max is now going to be releasing all their films simultaneously online as well in theaters. And so all these big movie stars are all internet stars now. We're just all on the internet now. Yep. Gal Gadot, Tom Cruise, Sarah Cooper, you're all on the same level. Bill Hader was on Seth Meyers Thursday night. Unfortunately, the March 2020 table read of the first 2 episodes of season 3 of Barry was the last time Bill Hader, Henry Winkler, Stephen Root, Sarah Goldberg, and the rest worked together in any capacity. The good news is since they've been home, Hader and his co-creator have written not only the entire 3rd season, but they've locked down scripts for the 4th season as well. The bad news, none of those actually exist as things you can watch, and there is no timeline there. Hulu has cast Amy Ryan. You know her from The Office. She will be in something called Only Murders in the Building. It's a scripted comedy series. Selena Gomez, Steve Martin, and Martin Short are in this thing as well. That is an interesting cast. Only Murders in the Building follows 3 strangers, Martin, Short, and Gomez, who share an obsession with true crime and suddenly find themselves wrapped up in one. Ryan plays a musician in the building and will appear regularly throughout the show. Sacha Baron Cohen spoke with Variety and said, after Bruno, I was fairly traumatized. For about 6 months afterwards, whenever I heard a police siren, I would start to get tense because I'd been chased by the police so much I vowed never to make another undercover movie again. But then Borat 2 happened. I felt democracy was in peril. I felt people's lives were in peril, and I felt compelled to finish the movie. The movie was originally about the danger of Trump and Trumpism. What coronavirus demonstrated was that there's a lethal effect to his spreading of lies and conspiracy theories. I brought Borat out because of Trump. There was a purpose to the movie, and I don't really see the purpose of doing it again. So yeah, he's locked away in the cupboard, so no Borat 3 for you. John Allen tells the San Francisco Chronicle, I'm a fairly dark person, so this last year has been great. If it's true, it's true. If it's funny, it's funny. You can't not acknowledge what's going on, but it doesn't have to be on the nose. It's about a catharsis that comes from an empathetic place of mocking our shared sorrows or putting them in context. The Chronicle also caught up with Kevin Pollak, who said, I've never really felt nerves. I remember the first time going on The Tonight Show, standing behind that curtain. Johnny Carson was the host. I felt similar to Christmas morning. I couldn't wait to open those gifts. This was an unparalleled excitement. If you need a gift, the Laugh Button tells us Richard Pryor's first 2 albums will be re-released on February 26th. Omnivore Records is restoring the albums. I know a lot of the early Pryor stuff is not all that well recorded. I remember when I first started back at Sirius, and this is 2003, the boss would be like, how can we never play Richard Pryor? And the answer was his stuff, by the time you broadcast it, it went through the audio chain and went out to cars and stuff, it sounded terrible. So I just didn't schedule Richard Pryor records. Then a box set came out, and most of it was remastered. It sounds really good now, but at the time, they just were not good. This is a 2-disc set featuring the 8 tracks from the initial release on the first disc. On the second disc, 21 tracks from the out-of-print compilation album Evolution Revolution, the Early Years. Scott Saul, who wrote the book Becoming Richard Pryor, wrote the liner notes for the first album's reissue. He writes, what you hold in your hands is something precious, both the landmark debut that it was and the piece of cultural dynamite that might have been. In its original form, Richard Pryor alerted the world that Pryor had stepped out of Bill Cosby's long shadow and developed a style, surreal, nervy, improvisational. That was all his own. Larry Karaszewski wrote the liner notes for Craps After Hours, that's the other disc. He writes, this fascinating collection chronicles how Richard Pryor evolved from 1960s nightclub comedian to being the voice of his generation. The performances capture the moment where Richard Pryor stopped being polite, where he took off his suit and tie and gloves, where Pryor began to reflect what was happening in the streets and in the counterculture. And if you paid attention in the summer of 2020, some of that Richard Pryor material, it was like he had recorded it last summer. That is your daily comedy news for today. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Overcast. Follow on Spotify, and I'll see you tomorrow.